Playing Devil Kings, also known as Sengoku Basara 1, but the butchered Western version. Yeah, that's basically what we're going to be playing here. We'll skip all this, and yeah, let's go to Conquest, and yeah, I'm going to just do a run of this. Yeah, my control stick, in case you haven't realised, my control stick is absolutely knackered. It just is. Like, it just automatically moves every time I just touch it. And it's kind of annoying. It really is. I need a new controller. I really do. But if I use the D-pad, it won't have a problem. So, what character am I going to use for this? Well, I suppose I haven't used Yukimura. Could do with Sasuke, I guess. And there's also Ranmaru. Yeah, but I don't know, like, maybe I should just play as Ranmaru. Now, this is an important thing to talk about with Devil Kings. If you pick normal difficulty in Devil Kings, prepare your anus, because it's going to be bruised. It's really going to be badly bruised if you pick normal difficulty, because this game will rape you. This game will absolutely anally rape you if you play on normal. And on hard, it's like double the effect. It's like, yeah, let's not do that. Let's play on easy difficulty, because we're playing Devil Kings. They made hard mode stupidly hard for no reason. Because, I don't know, like, the game developers are evil, I guess. I mean, it's a Capcom game, so what do you expect? But at the end of the day, we're going to, every time, can we not do this controller, please? I mean, it's alright as long as it's not cycling menus and stuff, but the moment it cycles menus, it just automatically does this. Right. Let's just go with this. Right. I don't know if we need, well yeah, we need to get some equipment here. That'll give us a little bit more of a chance of winning. And of course it's still doing this. God, my controller, man. I keep having this problem, and I don't even know what is causing this problem, but I've had this controller for a long time, people. I have had this controller for quite a while. And yeah, trying to keep it from doing that, very difficult. It's always in menus that does it, but sometimes it does it outside of menus, and it's really annoying. So yeah, I forgot who this character is, but that is Nobunaga Oda, or in this case it's Devil King, and there's Ranmaru, who is called Hornet in Devil Kings.
There's movement in Muri's army, my lord.
It's time.
I'm just going to get this out of the way before I start with the topic.
Of course.
Just simply because, you know, cutscenes and stuff, and yeah.
Why do you follow?
And that's No, who is called Lady Butterfly in this, but it's No, that's basically who it is.
My lord, if there is anyone that shall rule the lands under the heavens.
So, yeah, that's basically the gist of the characters.
Until that glorious day when you rule every creature in this land.
They're all from the Sengoku period, because this is Sengoku Basara, that's what this is. This is the very first one. But we never got the very first Sengoku Basara. Like, we got Devil Kings instead, which is basically a different version of the first Sengoku Basara. So, yeah. And that is Mitsuhide, who is also Tenkai. Not to be confused with the Tenkai from Onimusha. So yeah, let's actually play the game. I want to talk about this topic. Because there's quite a few, it's a bit of a broad topic that I want to talk about here. Because this topic has a lot to do with difficulty in video games. And oh boy, did I pick the perfect game for this, because this game sums up a lot of this discussion, but not all of it. There's a lot that I want to talk about with this game. Obviously, like, this game is a hard game, people. Oh, it is. But the thing about it is, and this is the thing, Devil Kings is a Muso. It's a very brutally hard Muso, and you'll have probably seen back, if you watched me playing Dynasty Warriors 3, you'll probably see me getting very frustrated with that game. Well, you see, while this isn't as frustrating as Dynasty Warriors 3, because you don't have to deal with, like, the mission objectives, it's still very frustrating nonetheless, gameplay wise. And in a lot of ways, I feel that Devil Kings, while it does kind of try to do some things with this prime system, as you can see here, I feel that the game struggles, particularly with some characters, at allowing you to, like, just, like, for example with here, like, because of the terrain, I can't, like, shoot them because I can't shoot straight, and that's screwing my combo over. So, yeah, but the thing about Devil Kings is, like, the game encourages you to get these hits, to build up all these hits. And as you build up hits, you essentially gain multipliers to your experience gain. So it encourages you to constantly be more, like, gain more, like, it encourages you to do priming and stuff so that you can build up the combo meter faster and gain more experience. But the thing about it is that also, I mean, it also deals more damage when they are effective with priming. But the thing about it is that usually the best, most effective way, depending on the character, to build up hits is to just simply mash the square button, because there is a bit of a delay on a lot of the moves in Devil Kings. I'm not sure if that's true for Basara 1 either, but let's put it this way, combat doesn't really flow as smoothly as you'd think. And because of that, it's not really easy to... It's not really as easy to, like, build all the combos and stuff, and, like, by mixing it up your different moves. Instead, you end up doing the same things over and over again. Now I'm getting pop-ups. Freaking pop-ups. I'm sick of these pop-ups. Like, I've not given you any authority. It's pop-ups on my computer. It's like, I've not given the computer any authority to tell me to do things. That's one thing that annoys me as well. These fucking... Like, everything nowadays is just like, you need to do this one thing. You know, it's just like, I never told you to show up. Like, there's software that'll just auto-start without your permission. You don't tell it to auto-start, it just does. But, I don't know, I don't get it. But yeah, this is a character I'm not really familiar with, this Murray person. I don't know who it is, who it's supposed to be in Japanese, because I don't think I've seen this character in any other Basara game. I think in Basara, like, in Basara freaking 2 maybe they're in it, but I don't know. They're not in Basara 4 or 3. But yeah, as you can see, these guys, like, if I was playing on normal, that would be like a quarter of my health bar gone from that one hit that guy did. That's how hard normal difficulty is in this game. You can die in seconds just because of shit like that. And yeah, I wasn't close enough. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. I mean, doing priming does give you fury, so you will want to use it every now and again. But as you can see, this is basically what fury does. It's basically a Muso. But the only way to build up the Muso is to prime enemies. And yeah, hit them when they're primed and it'll build it up. It's kind of how you do it. So yeah. That's basically the basic flow of this game. There's not really much else to it. I mean, you do have some special moves that you can use, but depending on the character, they may or may not flow well with what you're doing, and they're not necessarily good at comboing. It's weird. So, because of that, it can be a bit of a pain to use certain characters. And some characters are just better than others. Like, for example, I feel like Masamune Date in this game is one of the better characters to use, which is kind of funny because I'm not that great at him in the later games. But in this game, I actually find that he's one of the best to use. Like, and it's mainly because his, as you can see now, I've got double, so I get double experience because I've got 100 hits on the combo count. And if I maintain that, then I can essentially get maybe a triple. And that's kind of what we're looking to get here. So there we go, we've got triple now, triple experience, and yeah, there's not really much window to actually, you don't really get much of an opportunity to get out of it. Like once you get a triple, that's it. Like you have to maintain that, otherwise it's gone within a second if you stop. Whereas the more modern Basara games, they're a lot less strict on that, so you get a little bit more time, which means that you can utilize different moves. And yeah, it's a big deal, really, a huge deal, in fact. Like mixing up your moves in this game, as you can see, I'm just mashing. Like I'm pressing. This is mashing triangle. This is mashing square. That's literally what it is so far right now in the game. So yeah. Either ways, as I say, I wanted to talk about, and like I said, this is all relevant. Like I'm playing on easy difficulty right now. But I want to talk about how a lot of people, like when they talk about difficulty, like, and when they talk about games like Dark Souls and saying that Dark Souls is only good because like it's hard, and like if it wasn't hard, the game wouldn't work. People have made that argument many times, and I think it's a really stupid argument. I think the argument is actually really dumb, and people that say it are really stupid and very simple-minded. And the reason why it's simple, I mean, just look at the game we're playing here. It's a game where you mash square and occasionally press triangle. That's the game. There's not much else to it than that. I mean, yeah, there are some moves, but depending on the character, there might not be any point in using them. Now, in Basara 3 and 4, on the other hand, there's a different story, brother. Oh, that is a different story. Like, I mean, that game is technical, and because of that, like if you play on high difficulties on those games, it can actually be kind of fun if you're looking for that sort of experience, if you're looking for a challenge. But if you play a game like this on a high difficulty, it's just an ordeal. It's not fun, it's not challenging, because there isn't really much that you can do. There's not much depth to the game. You're just doing the same things over and over and over again, you know? You're not feeling like you're actually improving at the game when you fail, you're just feeling like you're getting unlucky, and that's kind of what this game is, really. And a lot of Musos are like that, really, because of just how unrefined they are, but I feel that with Basara, it's a lot less as such, because there's a lot more tools you can use to get yourself out of a bad situation. So, you know, like, that's the difference. Whereas with this game, well, I mean, I'm not going to say this game doesn't have tools. It does have like the ability to kind of guard. Like you can guard with attacks with this, and there's also the ability to like evade and stuff. So you do have that. But the biggest problem with this game is the camera. When you're fighting bosses, the camera does not lock onto them, and you're constantly having to recenter the camera all the time, just simply because the game wasn't really designed brilliantly, like in terms of like how the camera works. Like you have to press like the triggers to move the camera, and it's not really the most intuitive controls. But what makes it worse, and I'm just gonna like go down here because, well, I'm just gonna kill these officers down here just so that I can get some more experience. But yeah, like that's the thing. Like this game, because of how look-based this game is, because there isn't many mechanics, like because of the camera, like an enemy can just get behind you, and if an enemy's behind you, you can't see them, so they'll hit you with off-screen attacks. And there's not really much you can do about it if you can't see an enemy, and you can't actually defend from an enemy's attack unless you're facing them. And that's where the look aspect of this game comes in. Now, it all depends on where the enemy is, and it can get really frustrating constantly having to recenter the camera just simply because of how awkward it is. And you always have to have your finger on the trigger buttons just so that you can constantly recenter the camera. all the time, and I find that in these games, like in this game in particular, like the camera really is like. I just funny that I said that when there was a giant boulder in the camera, but yeah, like the camera isn't really your friend in this game. I'll definitely say that, because like you basically have to, like, you don't have a lock on like bosses. You do in later Basara games. It's actually an automatic lock on to some degree actually, which is kind of interesting, and that can actually be a problem. Like, I remember having problems with the auto lock on in Basara 4, like, because like there's times where you don't want to lock onto like officers. For example, when you're in the stage, like when you're in Maria's stage, you'll be fighting like boss enemies that the game will lock onto you, but those boss enemies won't, like, they'll just, like, if you beat them, they won't die, they'll just kind of like go into like temporary, like, knocked out, they'll be temporarily KO'd, and yeah, like, when you hit, like, when you knock them down, they'll just get back up and you won't gain anything from it. So you want to focus on the soldiers instead, and yeah, that's when it can get a bit annoying. But in this, there's no lock on at all, which is even more annoying, so yeah, you can't really win. It would have been nice if there was more of a lock-on button rather than just the camera focus button, just simply for those fights. But I suppose camera focus does work when you fight in a Muso game, usually, but with a game that's so technical, you would think that there would be more of a lock-on for those enemies. But even though there is, it's automatic. So yeah, but it's not that big of an issue, thankfully. Thankfully, you can actually put up with it in those games, and you know, like, just like fighting the troops isn't really that big of an issue with the camera focused on like the guy that you don't want to fight, because at least you know that the boss is around, so it's better to have the auto lock on than no lock on at all. So yeah, but anyways, I feel like I've segued in a way to like this game and how it's designed, but it's relevant to difficulty because this is what we're doing in the game. And Basara is the ultimate, like, Basara pretty much in itself proves everybody wrong. This is the game that proves to everybody that difficulty doesn't matter. And difficulty in like Soulsborne games, like, and all that lot, and how if they made the game easy, it would ruin the whole point of the game and ruin the game. Like, Basara proves all of that wrong, because this is a game that can work at any difficulty. Like, I'm playing on easy difficulty, and I'm having more fun playing this on easy than I've ever had playing on normal. On normal, this game is just absolutely brutal and just not fun. It's just not fun. Whereas on easy mode, this game's actually it's actually quite fun and cathartic. It's not the best Muso out there, but it's still a really fun time, and you can just like feel that empowerment, and it feels more like you have a chance, and you're not constantly like having to worry about getting killed in like a few hits, and that makes all the difference. So if you took a game like Dark Souls and you had it in easy mode to Dark Souls, then it would be the same thing as this. More people would enjoy it and play it. And the people that don't like, I mean, I wouldn't play it because I just don't like the style of game that Soulsborne are. But I know that there's a lot of people that don't play it because they are hard, and those people would actually play it and actually have fun. It would be a different experience. I mean, it's like when I play F-Zero GX. When I first played F-Zero GX, I played on the lowest difficulty, and I worked my way up to the highest difficulty. And it was a different experience each time. And they added replay value, because when I played the game on the lower difficulty, and then I replayed the game, I was replaying the game every time and getting a new experience that was fresh each time. So, in a way, adding an easy difficulty to a game like Dark Souls is not detrimental in the slightest. It's not a problem. It's actually a good thing, and developers should do it. Like, I don't know why people think that they shouldn't do it. I think people who say that are clueless. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is the worst thing that can happen if like Dark Souls gets an easy difficulty? And this is the thing. Like I'm only talking about this because people will make such a huge deal about it. I don't really personally care if Dark Souls gets an easy mode or not. But I just noticed that people constantly bring up Dark Souls as an example of this, and it's just like, no, like Dark Souls absolutely can work with an easy mode. Any game can work with an easy difficulty. Doesn't matter what game it is. If it exists, it can have an easy mode. Like any game can have difficulty options, and there's nothing inherently problematic about having difficulty options in a video game. It can only make a game better. You know? I mean, you could argue, well, they'll spend all this time rebalancing a game to like make it easier, but you know, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, look at how game developers waste our time with so much bullshit as it is. Like, it just means that we'd have like less bullshit filler in the games, and instead we'd have just a more concise product that's still enjoyable, but more people can enjoy. So really, it's not a problem at all. And you know, because game developers waste enough time with pointless bullshit in games anyways. So in a way, like, it's not a waste of resources because those resources wouldn't be spent on anything valuable anyways. That's basically what I'm saying. And it wouldn't really be that difficult to do. Like, it really wouldn't be too difficult. I feel that people like make out that it would be too difficult for them to rebalance things, and I'm like, well, most games do. How do those games do it, you know? How do these games rebalance themselves? Like, and that's the silly thing, you know? Difficulty really doesn't mean anything. Like, all it means is that, okay, you have an easy, the game's too easy for you, and you're just kind of bored of the fact that you're just dominating. Well, you can pick a higher difficulty, you know? Everyone has a difficulty that's right for them, you know? Some people, they play on the easiest difficulty because they want to feel powerful and they just want to win. And some people play on a higher difficulty because they want to challenge themselves and they want to replay the game again, but this time with a tougher challenge. Like, if anything, the only thing that difficulty really brings about of value is replay value. And that's how I see it. That's what I would play a game for on a higher difficulty, just simply for replay value. That's the only incentive for me to replay a video game. It's to get that reason that excuse to replay a game. That's it. Now, I don't want to replay every game, but like, if I do replay a game, would I consider playing on a higher difficulty? Yes, I would. Depending on what kind of game it is. I mean, some games I just wouldn't, just simply because they are such a bloody pain in the ass, like God Hand, for example. But, like, the thing about it is that that's the beauty of having difficulty options. It means that you have more replay value, so why not have an easy mode? That way people can not just play Elden Ring once, they can play it twice. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Like, why wouldn't you want to play Dark Souls twice, but on a higher difficulty? Like, you can have higher difficulty options on top of having an easy difficulty. You know? That's what Ninja Gaiden Black did. They added Ninja Dog difficulty, and, like, as I say, like, it didn't really, like, it's the definitive game that everybody goes on about. You know? I mean, sure, the developers clearly were against adding Ninja Dog because, well, it's Itagaki, isn't it? And Itagaki's a bit of an idiot, but he's had to learn the hard way, and I feel that he has learned a lot through games like Ninja Gaiden 2, where he's made a better game with that. I don't care what anyone says. Like, he improved a lot with Ninja Gaiden 2. And, yeah, like, that's kind of how things... That's kind of how things are with difficulty. Like, all these people like Miyazaki and Itagaki really don't really know what they're talking about. I'm not saying that they can't make good games, I'm just saying they really don't understand just how stupid it is to make a game hard for the sake of being hard. But the thing about it is, I don't even think it's that. I think a lot of it is to marketing. I think they know deep down, but they just want to market to a specific crowd, and they just want to speak a language that people understand. I think that's what it's all about deep down. So I think deep down they do know, it's just that that's how they are, that's how they think, that's how they portray their image, just simply so that they can be based or whatever, and like people can see them as like based, and that's kind of what it's all about, you know. But the thing about it is that, you know, at the end of the day, it's not what makes a game fun. And I feel like Ninja Gaiden 2 is a game that understood the difference between a fun game and a challenging game. Like Ninja Gaiden 2 put the fun factor into Ninja Gaiden because you added the obliteration techniques and like more focus on dismemberment and gore than the previous entry, and because of that you got a better game. Like now you've got more mechanics that you can utilize. So yeah, and that's kind of how things go. So at the end of the day, that's kind of all I have to say on really difficulty. But there's more to really talk about than just difficulty, because difficulty is just the beginning of all this, people. Like, there's so many things that go beyond just inherent difficulty. That this is just single player games, and more than just single player in a way. There's a lot more to all of this than I've even mentioned. Erdine scares me because that means Tadakatsu. That's Ieyasu, by the way. Yeah. I think Deadwood is a bit of a bitch, though. Screw it, we'll just go for it. I suppose we can leg it. If, I'm sure there's a way to leg it, but yeah. If you're playing this on normal and you find Tadakatsu, whew, you better be ready. Actually, is Tadakatsu in this? I forget. He should be. Or maybe he isn't in this before, I don't know.
This is where you'll fall, Erdine. Come to me if you don't.
But yeah, like every time I see any Ieyasu stage, I think of Tadakatsu regardless. I'm just like, oh god, it's a Tadakatsu stage, really. That's what they are. Like, fucking Tadakatsu is going to be here. And Tadakatsu is a pain in the ass. He's the loser of this game, so yeah. As I say, you have to be very careful when you find that motherfucker, especially on normal mode or hard mode. Oof. You're asking for a death wish if you play. That is if he's in this game. I forget if he is in this game. Right, but I could imagine if he is in this game that he would be like that. But yeah, as I say, that's kind of the take on difficulty. And like I say, like this game sums it up. I mean, Sengoku Basara like started off as a game that was way too hard, like, but had barely any depth. Oh boy, he's there. Yep. Fuck's sake. This is gonna be fun. Knew he was there. Thank God we're playing on easy difficulty, otherwise we'd have to really focus here. There he is. This is Tadakatsu Honda, and he's a fucking mech in Battle. So yeah, he's a mech, and he's not nice to fight, believe me. But Nobunaga's keeping him company right now. Kind of funny how Nobunaga's fighting him. I wonder if I could just like constantly hit him with this and just let Nobunaga damage him. Maybe that's the best way to fight him. I don't know. Because, yeah, Nobunaga seems keen, doesn't he? And I can just hit him with this, because I can shoot him. So, yeah, taking advantage of the AI. And just hitting him with the priming. Oh shit! That wasn't good. Yeah, it's like, look at this. The game loves to, the AI in this game just loves to like, it loves to go behind you all the time, like, and blindside you as often as it can. Like, when you prime the bosses, usually that happens. And this is the problem when you find Tadakatsu, like, you look at my health, that sums it up. He just absolutely bums you. Like, can I actually, like... Yeah, he's just going to sit there instead looking, isn't he? This is not going to be fun fighting this guy, I can tell you that right now. It never is. He is a pain in the ass to fight. He's just constantly going behind me, as per usual. This is the boss fights in this game. And boy did we pick the worst to fight. Yeah, he goes on forever with his freaking combo. It never fucking ends. If he hits that combo, that's it. And he's just going to block everything I do. Typical. He loves to block everything you do as well, on top of being a bell end. So, can I actually deal any damage to him? Well, I've done a bit of damage to him. But I think that's enough. We can't really do much against him. Let's not pursue him anymore. Oh my god! Fucking hell, man. Let's just bypass everything and run from him. I think that's the only thing we can do. But yeah, fighting Tarakatsu is never fun. In any video game. Pain in the ass, that's all he is. Right. Hopefully, yeah, he's knocked out. Good. I think that's the best way to beat him, just use Fury moves on him. Like, charge up your Fury with priming, and yeah, then just use Fury moves. But just hope and pray that he doesn't chase you down while you're doing this. Here we go, we got some prime there, but yeah, trying to avoid Tarakatsu is not easy while I'm trying to kill these guys. Let alone starting a priming. Like, what do you expect me to do? I have to fucking start hitting or we're never gonna get anything done. Right. Yeah, this is a tough one, is this. It just all comes down to like abusing the systems. That's basically what it comes down to when you... Oh, fuck's sake. Like, you see what I mean? And this is easy mode, people. This fucking fighting Tarakatsu on fucking easy mode. It's just not worth doing. And but even if you're trying to run away from him, it's still a pain in the ass. But that just sums this game up. This is easy mode, and it's just insanely difficult. That one stage is more difficult than you'll ever do in any other stage, just simply because Tarakatsu is there. That's why whenever you face Erdine, it's just like, yeah. I guess I'll go to Zavi. Or Cue Ball, as they call him in this. Freaking Cue Ball. Church is now in session, boys. We're off to fight Zavi. Our Lord and Saviour. Yeah. But, as I say, like, that just sums this game up. Was that my fault that I lost the fight? No, it wasn't. He hit me from an attack from behind which I couldn't see coming and I couldn't block. You know? I was just running away from him. There was nothing else that I could do. I'm fighting Tarakatsu, guys. And I was trying to run away from him and it wasn't working. You know? I probably could have killed him if I had some fury, but because I was trying to run away from him, there wasn't much that I could do. What else can you do against Tarakatsu? Not much. Not in this game. So it all comes down to luck. Whether or not he hits you or not, like, because you can't tell because you're not facing him, and if you're facing him, chances are you're moving towards him. So it's just like, you know, and you can't see what's in front of you, so you've got an instant disadvantage. It's things like that that make it all luck, no skill, pretty much. And situations like that mean that the game is not fun. But then you get, as I say, Basara 4 or Basara 3, where... I mean, I personally just stick with the basic difficulties because that's how I enjoy playing games. But you can play on the higher difficulties and have fun playing on the higher difficulties with those games and have a really fun challenge if that's what you want. Whereas with this game, playing on the higher difficulties is just painful. It's not really what I would consider to be fun. person. Like, it just isn't fun. Like, because it's just you basically dying more often due to bullshit. That's basically what Devil Kings is. But all Musou games are kind of like that, really, because of just how they were designed originally in the first place. They've always been sloppy. Musous have always been sloppy games, you know? They've always been like that because that's kind of how they were designed to begin with. I mean, it's like Koei weren't really known for making action games back in the day. Like, in Omega Force, they weren't really a big name back then, you know? So it's just like, it's kind of like, when they kind of pioneered the Musou genre, it wasn't really super fleshed out. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but obviously they just knew eventually to capitalize on the simplicity of it and make it easier. That's why you have modern Dynasty Warriors games that are considered brain dead, and people complain about that, but the thing is, there's a reason why it's brain dead. It's because they are mechanically inept. Whereas Basara took it in the opposite direction and decided, you know, we can actually do something with this. Instead of like being mechanically inept and just accepting that we are, we're going to add some more technicality to the game. And that's what Basara eventually did with Basara 3 and 4. And that's one of the reasons why I love Basara so much. But this first game was in a weird situation because it was still in that old mindset of like Dynasty Warriors. But it's silly and dumb. That's kind of what it is. Like, it's just like another Samurai Warriors clone. It's basically what it was until like later games where they actually went beyond that and it became more technical and more respected. But this is where it started, and everything starts somewhere. So, you know, like, and you gotta remember, this is a Capcom game. Capcom, like, if you play the 3D beam up in the 2000s, chances are it was a Capcom game, you know? Chances are, like, if you played 3D beam ups, you've played at least one Capcom 3D beam up, and you've enjoyed it, you know? Like, they've made so many back in the 2000s that it's unbelievable. So for those guys to be making, like, a Musou game, of course, they're gonna be more willing to go more technical than what, like, Omega Force and Koei are going to do with Dynasty Warriors. And that's just kind of the way it is. So they were like the more technical alternative to Musous. I mean, if you want to go any further than this, then you could argue Ninja Gaiden 2, because that kind of is a Musou game, and if you think about it, it's just a Musou game that isn't brain dead and actually requires you to be good at the game if you want to stand a chance. Like, because there's tons of enemies. Oh great, they have to fight the fucking mech guys now. Yep. Fucking Mechazavi. Or Cue-Ball. I just find I love how they call him Cue-Ball and fucking Devil Kings. It's so hilarious, and yeah, there's experience gems there, and there's like 300 experience that was just on the floor that would have faded away if I didn't grab it. So yeah, had to get that. And yeah, like, so you have these games that are just that have so much depth in the series, like with Basara 3 and 4, and yet you have games like this which don't. And the thing about it is that difficulty, like it doesn't really inherently mean anything. This game is harder than, like, on normal difficulty, this game is harder than Basara 3 and 4, but Basara 3 and 4 are better games because they have more technicalities to the combat, but they aren't necessarily hard games. They are, like, especially for Capcom, like, beat-em-ups, they're actually not that difficult. They're actually just kind of fun. This game is difficult, and it's not as fun, it's not as deep, it's just frustrating. And that's the thing, like, you can make Basara difficult, like Basara 3 and 4 difficult, but you can actually choose to make it super easy and brain dead if you want to as well. And it's still fun regardless of what you pick. I mean, obviously, if you're the type of person that wants a challenge, it's probably not going to be as fun playing on a lower difficulty. And the same can be said about playing on a high difficulty, but that's the player's choice. You know, that's the player's choice, that's what they choose to do. So you've got to respect that as a game developer, that players want to play a certain way and want a game to be easier. And it seems the gaming community opposes that mentality because IGN reviewers, like, reviewed their favourite game negatively, and I've already talked about IGN reviews before, many times and why they do that. The reason why IGN reviewers do that all the time and they shit on games that are hard is simply because they just want to get the game reviewed. The game's frustrating them because they can't finish the game or get enough of the footage for the game in time to do their review or whatever the fuck, and they just want to get it over with. They're not enjoying the game because they're not there to enjoy the game. They want the game to be easy so it's easier to get through so that they can review it. That's why they are the way they are. When your job is to review video games, that's the mentality you have. And, you know, that's why they are so critical of difficult games, people. You've got to understand that. But really, these games shouldn't be so inherently difficult to begin with. I don't think that there's a reason for them to be inherently difficult, you know? And that's just the thing, you know? Make games accessible for everybody. That's what I say, you know? Don't just make games that are just, like, annoying, you know? So, to all these people who say that Dark Souls can't have an easy mode, you know, those people need to shut their mouths because they don't know what they're talking about. But that's just the beginning of the whole discussion, because I wanted to talk about something that is even more deeply connected with difficulty. That's slightly related but not entirely related, because now we're going to get into the discussion of inherent complexity. Now, I've talked about inherent complexity a lot, but I feel that a lot of people don't even understand what inherent complexity even is. They don't understand what that means. And the thing about it is that inherent complexity, it's... A lot of people look at the term complexity and they think that that means that's a good thing, right? That complexity is objectively a good thing. Well, that's not really entirely true. You see, there's two types of complexity. Now, I mean, this is basically from... Like, there's a book called Game Design Theory, and it's written by Keith Bergen, and he basically used this terminology, so, like, credit goes to him for coming up with the terminology. But in a way, like, I just like to call it the depth and complexity, like, sort of like ratio, really. But what he calls it is inherent complexity and emergent complexity. I don't see why, like, but for the sake of me talking myself, I'm just going to call it the depth and, like, the depth and complexity, like, hang on a minute. Like, I'm going to just call it the depth and complexity ratio, because complexity is, it's not really a good thing. Like, what complexity is essentially a byproduct of depth. Or depth is sometimes a byproduct of complexity, but not always. But, like, complexity is usually the byproduct from depth. It's kind of like a waste product. That's what complexity is. It's like when you take a shit, it's the waste product from all the food that doesn't want to stay in your body. Like food comes with its nutrients that is good for you, and then you have, like, the waste products that your body doesn't want, and then you take a shit, and yeah, I don't think I need to go into too much detail explaining that, people. But that's essentially what depth and complexity is like. It's the waste product. That is what it is. It's the waste product of what's left after all of the depth that your game has. Now you've got all this waste product in the form of complexity in your game that doesn't really need to be there. So the ideal thing is, and this is the thing, I could have done a theory crafting episode on this, but it's not really even my own theory. This is a theory written by Keith Bergen. But I feel that I need to say it anyways. You know, like, ultimately, complexity is not a good thing. Games should not strive to have complexity. Or at least inherent complexity, in his words. And here's why. Because complexity, all it does is, it doesn't necessarily make a game more, give a game more depth. It just means that a game is less accessible and, like, more, like, it means that you have a higher barrier of entry than normal. The thing about it is, and here's the thing, in the age of the internet, people, like, maybe this would have worked back in the day. Inherent complexity was a way that you could make games work back in the day. Nowadays, you can't really make it work as well, because nowadays we live in an era where you can just simply, like, make a game, like, like you don't like you can just make a game that's a lot like. Is that all the troops? Really? Have we killed them all? I don't know. But yeah, you can make a game that is... Ah, there's more troops. You can make a game that is, like, really complex, but the problem is, if you make a game that's complex, and you rely only on the complexity of it, eventually that game's going to be solved. Because the thing about games is that there's a thing called meta, and meta is essentially, like not to be confused with metagaming. Meta is essentially the most effective method of play discovered by the community. That's essentially what it is. It's the way that you're supposed to play for the most efficiency. So if you play multiplayer games, you'll know more about meta because you usually are expected in a multiplayer game to understand the meta, which is why in multiplayer games you really need to make multiplayer games as simple as possible. That's why you don't see many people playing fighting games, that's why you don't see many people playing RTS games, because they have too much inherent complexity, whereas like first-person shooters and like battle royale games don't, and that's why they're so popular. You know, you don't need to be Einstein to play those games. You don't need to like do research beforehand to just jump into a match, you know? And that's why those games do well. Now, the thing about inherent complexity is to some degree it's kind of needed. You can't always make a game simple. It's not that, you know, sometimes you have to add a little bit of inherent complexity to get the desired effect so you can have more depth. And that's why I say it's a byproduct. Sometimes it's inevitable. Sometimes you're going to have that. But it's like, what are you going to get out of that outside of it? What is beyond the complexity? Like, where is the depth? That's what we're looking for. And if that complexity can bring depth, then it's good. But if it can't, then it's not good. And you've got to really measure it and see, is it really worth adding more complexity to this game? Will it really bring more depth? And I feel that in a lot of cases, like, while that can happen, I feel that there are cases where it doesn't happen. And I feel that a lot of games are bloated in complexity, and that's a problem. I feel that MOBAs especially are really bloated with complexity, and you could get rid of a lot of that needless bloat, and you still wouldn't have much change in terms of depth. You'd still have plenty of depth in your game, so it's not an issue, you know? And that's the thing. So complexity isn't inherently bad, but it can be bad, you know, if it doesn't bring about depth, and that's kind of the point of what inherent complexity is. So when I say a game is inherently complex, I don't say that as a good thing, I say that as a negative thing. I say that as a flaw, and you know, like, every game to some degree is going to have some level of complexity. Like, Valve Profile 2 has inherent complexity. I mean, the skills system is inherently complex because of how complicated it is by law. Like, to understand how that system works, you have to, like, experiment a bit and figure it out. There are a few NPCs that can give you some tips, but you still have to kind of figure it out. But figuring it out is just basically a gateway to a certain part of enjoyment that the game has that you want to be a part of, but you can't be a part of yet. And you just want to get to the fun factor of the game. You just want to get to the fun part, but the game doesn't let you get to that fun part because instead you're doing this tedious, like, learning curve that you don't want to be a part of. And some people enjoy the learning curve, don't get me wrong, but I feel that practice is usually more of a important thing than the learning curve. Like, I feel that most people really, they don't want a learning curve, they just like to practice and get better through, like, doing and not have to read into things, you know, and like understand basic things. Because this is the thing, people don't want to waste time researching, like, how to do something in a game when most people on the internet nowadays, it's common knowledge and it's expected to be known, you know? And that's the thing that's kind of annoying about it. Like, all this stuff, it really is just common knowledge, you know? You're just expected to know everything. It's like you play a game of Warcraft 3, 4 versus 4. Everyone on your team will expect you to know like the meta builds, and if you don't, you're letting your team down, and your team are going to be pissed at you just simply because you don't understand the meta. You've not played the game long enough before, so you don't understand that picking Crypt Lord as your first hero as undead is a bad idea. Unless you're like an APM god, which you probably aren't if you've not played the game long. But if you're an APM god, you can probably make it work just simply because you have so much APM that you just beat your opponent senseless anyways. But the thing about it is that, like, you're going to play less efficiently because you picked a hero that isn't good. So you're going to be a liability to your team, and that's a problem. And then people get pissed at you. And this is a problem that's brought about by inherent complexity. And Keith Bergen actually used Warcraft 3 as an example in his book, which is kind of funny. Like, it sums it all up when Warcraft 3 is the game that's like the definitive inherent complexity, like, culprit, really, because it really is. Like, that game relies so much on it, and it really bites it in the ass in the long run, especially with it being a real-time strategy, because a lot of the strategy and all that don't really matter, and it's not balanced at all because of how the game, I suppose the game is so old now, they haven't really rebalanced anything much, but even though they have done a few rebalances, it's still not really enough to fix a lot of the problems that game has. Like, certain heroes are just going to be completely useless. Like, they still haven't really fixed Dreadlord. Like, freaking, there's so many heroes that are just not that great. Like, I mean, Pitlord isn't brilliant, let's be honest. The only way you can actually utilize Pitlord is if you can use its Doom, and basically micromanage your summons. And that's the thing. Like, a lot of the heroes comes down to how much APM do you have. Like, how much APM can you expend to actually fully utilize some of these heroes. And if you don't have much APM, you want to use a hero that doesn't require as much APM, and the same goes for units. Just like, why use caster units if you don't have the APM to utilize their spells? You know what I mean? You might as well just mass, and that's what a lot of people do, because they just don't have that ability. But those are the lower end of people that don't have high APM, they'll do that. And that's the thing, like, the higher APM, the more that's opened up to you in terms of what you can actually do. So APM kind of acts as like a barrier of entry in a way, but it depends on how you look at it. Like, that's the thing, you'd think it would be, it's actually the other way around with Warcraft 3 because of how it's designed. It's not an RTS, you know, and that's the silly thing. So yeah, it's kind of weird in that regard, but that's kind of how it is. It all comes down to APM more than anything. So if your APM is low, you're not gonna have as much flexibility in terms of strategies. So you have to just resort to using the basic strategies because that's the only ones you can do effectively. So that means that you are less flexible, and that means you are a weaker player because people can easily counter you, and you can't really easily counter them because you can't play any other builds. So there's a lot to learn in Warcraft 3 that people just don't have time to learn, and that's why you don't see many people playing it, and that's why, you know, the game is in the state that it's in, and it's full of elitism and problems, you know? And that's always going to be a thing. It's never going to change. People are always going to be like that in Warcraft 3 because that's just how the game is, you know? It's annoying when one of your teammates doesn't know because they're letting the team down and they don't know how to play, and it gets frustrating and people turn to death threats because they're so pissed off at you. But, you know, that's how it is, you know? You're letting the team down by being not good at the game, and people are frustrated at you, and that's what's going to happen in a game that has too much inherent complexity. That's why League of Legends and Dota and all of these games, which, by the way, they started in Warcraft 3, like, Dota was invented in Warcraft 3, so that should tell you everything you need to know. That's why the communities are so toxic in these games, because of the inherent complexity. Like, the inherent complexity is the biggest problem with these games, and it will always be the biggest problem with these games. Like, that's the issue, you know? Yeah, we've got Q Ball himself, and we've got a Mech Q as well. So, yeah, we've got a bit of both here, folks. Yeah, I need to prime these guys, don't I? And then I need to hit. That's usually it, just prime and then mash square. That's literally what the game is at this point. But, yeah. This guy's got his own religion. That's kind of his gimmick. Everyone has little gimmicks in Devil Kings. That's kind of its thing, really. You know? All the characters are like gimmicks, and all the gimmicks are like different for every character, and that's what keeps the series interesting. Oh, Jesus. Oh, cue ball. There we go. There's a lot of experience crystals. Oh my god, this is what I mean. This is what the game relies on. If they aren't in your camera view, they will back attack you at all times. So you have to be you have to constantly be on the ball to make sure that the camera is playing ball, you know? That they are in your camera view, otherwise it's going to be really problematic for you. But yeah. So, yeah. That's basically the gist of inherent complexity, as I say, like, that's kind of the thing. I mean, games are essentially going to be much harder if they have inherent complexity, but that's not necessarily going to be a good thing because they're also less accessible. You want games to be accessible. Accessible games are good. It's a good thing to have an accessible game. You want games to be accessible. You don't want them to be hard inherently, but you do want them to have depth. Now, I'm not saying that you don't want to have hard difficulties. I mean, you don't want them to be inherently hard. You want them to be flexible. You want to have options for everyone to have fun. And that's why, you know, like, having inherent complexity definitely doesn't help, because it makes it hard by default. Because complexity is, in a way, difficulty. So, yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're gonna go for Motochika in wherever he is, Namvir in this game. Right. As you can see, we've got a new weapon. I should have equipped that last time. We're gonna engage Motochika. As I say, so what happens when you make a game that has very little inherent complexity and a lot of emergent complexity, or like very little complexity but a lot of depth? Well, I don't think Basara is essentially that. I don't think that this is like the difficulty thing. Basara was the perfect game to cover for that. Like in terms of like how difficult it doesn't matter, because like Basara 3 and 4 have a lot of depth. But do they have a lot of complexity? Well, that's a good question. Like, I'd say that they do have a lot of complexity in certain ways, but not in the ways you'd think. They have complexity in a different way, like the movesets that you have to learn with each character is kind of its complexity, but it's not too much inherent complexity. And that's why it works, that's why it gets away with it. There's always going to be inherent complexity, but it's about minimizing the inherent complexity and maximizing depth. That's what it's all about. That's what the goal of game design is all about. Like, getting rid of the byproduct of inherent complexity and getting depth out of everything it can. But sometimes you can get depth out of simple things, and those are the best games. When they can do that, that's a win. You've won if you can do that. That's a winning move. But, yeah, as I say, but complexity without depth is foolishness. Like, if you do that, then you're just wasting the player's time, you're wasting everybody's time. Like, it's just making an inferior game, that's all you're doing. Why would you want to make an inferior game? You know, you want to make a good game that people want to play. That's the whole point. So, get rid of that complexity. Like, as I say, this is almost like a theory crafting episode, but it's not my theory, so I shouldn't really be claiming that it is my theory. So yeah, it is someone else's theory, they can take the credit, but that just speaks about just how important it is. Like, I'm not the only person saying this shit. other people are saying it as well. So, you know, that makes my statement more credible because I'm not the only person talking about this, you know? So you can't just say, oh, well, you know, I'm not, you're the only person saying this, and I can't trust your word. No, this is, people in the industry are actually saying this, not just me. If you read the books, you'll see what I mean. Like, so it's not just me saying it. It's not just me talking a lot of bullshit. Like, people are actually talking about this, and it's an issue. And it's something that more people need to start bringing up. And it's an issue that people need to start taking seriously that aren't, because everybody wants to constantly be with the cool kids and rave on about how everyone's saying gaming is too easy. All these journalists are like trashing on our favourite games because they're too hard. We need to punish them by making games harder, and we need to like make games harder because that makes them better. And it's just like, those people, you know, they need to shut their mouths because they don't know what they're talking about. I'm not saying that journalists are like freaking. Like, I'm not saying that journalists are angels. They're absolutely not. But you know, as I say, like, they're not angels, and yeah, but you shouldn't use that as an excuse, you know, because it's not sufficient. Like, just because journalists are reviewing games, I mean, it's an issue with journalism in itself, like, and just it's an issue with like big sites. Like, they shouldn't be reviewing games. Big sites should not, like IGN, should not be doing game reviews. You know, they shouldn't, because they're corporate, you know, and the way corporations run things basically means that all of these reviewers have deadlines to fill, and it's not practical, you know. They're just wanting to get content out for people to read so that they can generate money from ad revenue. That's what it's all about. They don't care about the quality of the content and whether the content actually works. That's why you have reviews like that, because people are just trying to get paid and they're just trying to do their job. That's it. That's all they're bothered about. They're not bothered about whether or not, and they're going to be frustrated over if the game is bad, or like if the game is too hard, they're going to get frustrated and then they're going to trash on the game because of how frustrated they are. So that's why those reviews are the way they are. You know, you kind of got to understand that. It's the system that's messed up, not necessarily like the fact that, you know, you've got to understand that fact. People just don't. People just aren't willing to like listen. But this is not easy. I'm having a tough time here. I have to backtrack to the treasure box and grab some health if there is one. Should be one somewhere though. But yeah, this isn't easy. Yeah. There's a lot of open, empty areas in the first Basara, I find. It's kind of how the arenas are. Like, they're a lot more constrained in later ones. But in this one in particular, like, they are really open and barren. Like, there's a lot of that in the first Basara. So, yeah. I mean, as I say, I think that's kind of a bit similar with Warriors as well. Like, they used to have these huge open maps. Now they have these more tighter maps, but they're filled with people. It's kind of just a design change that's happened over time. Like, I suppose it's so that people can have an easier time at figuring out where they are on a map, and just having a bit more variety to the maps than just being like some sort of like huge empty space with something around to see. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why they've done it. But yeah, like, I'm just kind of getting sick of these people now just saying that games need to be harder and all this lot. And I want people to understand the whole thing about journalism, because people don't. And I'm not advocating for these journalists, believe me. I think there's a lot of corruption in this industry, and yeah, I'm blaming the system itself, not the individuals that work in the system. I'm blaming the system because the system is fucked. These sites, these journalist sites are just bullshit. And the way the internet works is bullshit. The reason why people, as I say, I said it before in my Truth About YouTube video, the reason why these journalists are talking about politics is because it's the one thing that gets them clicks. you know, not actual reviews of games. Like, people don't care about, like, actual gaming content anymore. That doesn't generate views, so they don't make it, you know? And I think a lot of that is due to the fact, and the reason why they do all this stuff about, like, politics, is because it's easy views. That's literally it. It's what people want to consume because, I don't know, like, it's not, I don't think gaming journalists even target gamers anymore. They target people who want to discuss something relevant to gaming. They are basically, journalists are kind of like the external experts, they're kind of like the translators. That's what they are. Like, journalists are essentially like the people, they're like the middleman between, like, non-gamers who want to, like, figure out get information on gaming for their political agenda. Like, people like Anita Sarkeesian and, you know, people that are into all of that sort of thing, you know, and political sort of things that aren't really into gaming will turn to the journalists who are experts on gaming to give them the information. And that's what they're catering to. They're catering to these. They're not even catering to gamers anymore. But because gamers don't really generate the views. Why? Because gamers are too busy playing video games. But also because there's no trust with the reviews anymore, so they turn to something else, and that's another reason why they do that. And why do they not trust reviews anymore? Because, yeah, so what can these people do? News? Well, they do plenty of that as well. But it's another case of, like, corporations just not being run properly and just expecting humans to just be robots and just, you know... That's basically it. Yeah, it's just the usual shit of the world. Like, it's always going to be the case where people just want a system that, like, all these companies want a system that just works for them and, you know, that just want to basically get rid of individualism and just make everybody into robots, you know? And the same goes for these journalists, you know? Like, these journalism sites, I mean, like, these sites are designed that way to make it so that, you know, like, it's as hard as possible for these people, and, like, it's designed to make it so that writers have, like, they have these deadlines, so they just want to get it done, they want to get it over with, you know, they don't, and it changes their attitude to video games entirely, because this is what they have to do now, and it's like, because the deadlines that they have are just too unrealistic for a review, so they don't put enough effort into the review, so you get low effort reviews, just simply because they are too fatigued from having to do too many reviews at once. And believe me, as someone who does reviews, I can vouch for the fact that these reviews take time, and when you're constantly under pressure to do these reviews because you're on a, like, schedule and you're on, like, a deadline, it's not really, like, it's really stressful. And, like, there's a bit of that in YouTube as well. If you're in the rat race, you're going to have to deal with that. Like, getting a review out while it's relevant. Ah, shit. You know? That in itself is, like, not fun to do. And it's part of what you have to do on YouTube nowadays. YouTube is getting harder, people. I hope you haven't realised just how much harder YouTube is. I mean, hopefully by now you should already realise just how much harder it is for smaller creators. But, man, like, if you're not doing it a certain way, you are really going to have a rough time on this platform. I'm just going to say that. Like, you really are. Like, if you're not into the rat race, well, you're not going anywhere. You're not growing, like, fast at least. You're going to grow very slowly. I mean, growth is going to happen no matter what. Like, I mean, come on, I've got like 400 and odd subs, so I've been growing. It's only took like, I don't know, 7 years to get this growth. But yeah, so you're going to grow. I mean, if I can grow doing this shit, you can definitely grow on YouTube, but it's just going to take a long time, you know, and it's one of those things that, you know, to actually make the content, you'll be questioning whether it's even worth it, because, you know, like, what's your goal? It depends on what your goal is, you know. You want to make money doing this? Well, you know, that's going to change everything, isn't it? Do you not care? Well, that's the thing. That's where things are going to be questioned. It's like, for me, you know, because of my goal, which is, you know, mental health, I decided to do this sort of content, which is, you know, just content I enjoy, just playing a video game. The easiest thing anyone can do. I'm not even trying hard anymore, you know. I'm just making my life super easy, you know? So yeah, that's the kind of thing. As I say, that's basically the gist of it. I mean, I feel that with I suppose I could talk into that more about game journalism and all that. Well, like I feel, as I say, game journalism is basically not respected anymore, and I totally get why. I totally get why game journalists are just like crapped on. But, you know, like, even YouTube content creators have just entered that realm as well, you know? Like, I think everyone's guilty of it because of just how everything is conditioned now. You're all conditioned to do that sort of content now, and that's what sells, you know? So people just make what sells. It's not our fault that people watch garbage, you know? And that's the thing, people don't want to watch, like, but then again, why should people care? I think that's the thing, like, a lot of the content I do is very niche, and not many people are going to care about what I do. And that's kind of the reason why I'm not growing very far, you know, I'm not growing very much, because not many people give a shit about this sort of content, and I get it, I totally get it, you know, but it's just like, that's why I'm doing low effort stuff like this, because that way I can sort of deliver what I want to do to some degree and talk about topics like this, whilst not, like, working my ass off with heavily edited videos. And that's one of the things that I'm glad that I can actually talk about this topic without having to worry about that. It's kind of liberating how I can actually get this out there. I'm glad that I'm finally able to really talk about this topic without having to worry about how I actually format it. That's the thing, I feel that people get too caught up in, like, the YouTube game that they just kind of, like, forget what it is that they really wanted to do. You know, they just want to succeed and try all the tricks, and it really doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if you get, like, big. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I'm lucky that I even got the subs that I've got, so, you know, it's just like, I'm kind of lucky. I mean, some people are not so lucky. Some people are still grinding away and have got nothing. And I think for those people, like, I'm not saying you should give up, I'm just saying that you should just make life easy for yourselves. That's the most important thing ever, like, in anything. There's a lot of people that are telling you to hustle more nowadays, and it's kind of, like, this hustle culture, I feel, has gotten out of hand. Because it's just like, what are you hustling for at the end of the day? Like, is it really worth hustling when, like, you're not getting anything out of it? No. You know, and that's what YouTube is. It's one big-ass hustle with nothing in return unless you do the hustle in a way that is able to generate money. Which means that you have to pander to specific groups of people, you know? And, yeah, like, you have to cover topics that are popular, that people want to watch, that attracts attention. It's all marketing. That's what it's all about. You have to be marketable. And that's the thing, you know? You're not marketable, well, you know, the hustle's just not going to give you anything. There's no point in hustling if you can't market yourself. You know, that's the thing. If you can't market yourself, don't bother hustling. You know? Work smart, not hard. That's what people say. That's what I say, you know? If you want to make content that's good. I feel that, and this is the thing, I've learned, like, this video is a result of what I've learned on this platform. That's what this video is. What I'm doing right now is a result of what I've learned on this platform, and it's like trying to find a compromise that will satisfy me and hopefully my viewers. That's what this is. You know? This isn't a case of like just like some random videos. Like this, the reason why I do these videos is there's an actual kind of like method in my madness with these videos. You know, and there's an actual thought put into how I structure this and how I actually do this. I mean, not much obviously, but you know, I actually think about what it is that I'm actually doing here, what I should do, and this is the result. I mean, it might not seem like much, but this is the result of what I have decided, like, of what my YouTube journey has led me to go to. This is where I'm at. And honestly, like, this is easy. Anyone can do this. Anyone can do this, what I'm doing right now. And I want to make that clear. I want to make that clear. Anyone, like you watching this video, you can do this video. You can make exactly what I'm doing. It's just talking over a video game. It doesn't require any skills to do this. You know, it doesn't require any effort. You're just playing a video game and talking. This is easy. This isn't quality. This isn't quality content. Don't let anyone fool you into thinking that it is. If you see anyone who does a live stream and they make out that their job is so difficult, or they just complain and complain all the fucking time, then, you know, those people really need to fucking do some real work. Then they'll know just how hard it actually is, you know? As I say, you know? You can do the easy mode. There's nothing wrong with doing easy mode in anything in life. Nothing wrong. And this kind of ties to the difficulty thing, but it's also with YouTube. There's nothing wrong with doing garbage content. Nothing. You've just got to be self-aware and know that it's garbage. And accept that it's garbage. And not complain when you're not getting anywhere. Like, how can I complain when I'm not getting subscribers when this is the content I make? You know? How can I complain that I'm not getting views when this is the content that I make? I can't. Because there's nothing to complain about. And that's one of the reasons why I make it, so that I don't have that complaint to deal with. Instead, I just focus on having fun and enjoying myself. You see what I mean? And I know I rag on about this, but this is why I make these videos and I keep talking about it all the time. And I want people to really understand that. I want to make sure people remember this, because it's so important that people remember the whole purpose of these videos is for me to have fun. Like, it's so important that people remember this, because, like, and I want to encourage people who are interested in YouTube to give it a go and just, you know, don't worry too much about anything. Don't worry if your videos aren't good enough. You're gonna get people criticizing you anyways. It's guaranteed to happen. Like, people criticize me all the time, and usually those people don't even watch me, you know? And it's just like, well, you know, you're never gonna watch me anyway, so why even listen? Just have fun, you know? Just have fun making content, you know? Stop thinking too hard about not getting enough views, not getting enough success, or anything like that. Stop thinking about that. Start focusing on what it is that you want to do and what it is that you love. You know, and if it doesn't work, oh well, so be it. I mean, you can try other things, but, you know, if you're happy with what you've got, then just keep doing it, you know? I mean, the thing about it is, no matter what it is, even if something doesn't do well, there's always a chance that anything, no matter how good or bad it is, will explode and like, get viral, or, you know, or at least get some decent views and make you happy. Every video is a chance, but if you don't make the video, then you'll never get that chance to begin with, you know? But yeah, like, ultimately, like, all I'm just saying is that the days where effort is worthwhile on YouTube are over, you know? I mean, the bar is so high now, the bar for expectations is so unbelievably high now, that to satisfy people nowadays on the internet is so difficult. Like, back in the day when YouTube started, you didn't have to have like a good microphone. You could just record off your fucking camcorder, and like you could record your TV screen and shit like that. You know, you didn't have to worry about resolution or like anything like that, or thumbnails or anything like that. Now you do, and that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. That's the issue. Nowadays, that's what you have to deal with, and it's a huge problem. Like, for new creators, because they're having it hard because they're having to start with this, and they're having to learn all of this stuff all at once as they do it, and it's a huge learning curve to actually reach. Whereas the people who have already got success, they got success before they had to learn all of this stuff. Now all the new YouTube content creators are going to have to go through this learning curve process that the old ones didn't have to go through, and because of that, now it's much harder for newer creators to, you know, grow on YouTube, because they don't know how to do it, because it's so different from what the older creators did. And a lot of creators will just say, well, just make quality content. All these gurus will just say, just make quality content. But that's a lie. That is such a fucking lie. Making quality content does not generate views or anything. What you want to make is content that is provocative, content that attracts attention, be it provocative or otherwise, or pandering. It's got to be one or the other. You either have to be the ultimate babyface or the ultimate heel. Pick your poison. Choose which one you want to be. Do you want to be Young Defiant, or do you want to be fucking Happy Console Gamer? Pick one, because that's what you've got to be if you want to succeed on this platform, you know? I mean, like, to both of those people, like, whatever you do, I have no issue with any of those guys doing what they do. You know, like, they're hustling, they're doing what they want to do, like, they're doing the work they want to do, like, and it's working for them. Good for them. Good for them. It's working for them. But not all of you, not everyone will want to do that. And that ultimately is the question you should be asking yourself if you want to do this for a living. If you want to do this for a living, you've got to understand this is what you have to decide for yourself. And no matter what you do, the journey is not going to be easy. You're going to have problems. But that's what happens if you want to do this as a career. If you want to do this for fun, you don't want those problems. So don't make life hard for yourself. Because believe me, if you do, you will get burned out of this freaking platform. It will get on your nerves and you will lose faith in it. Like, I mean, so many people are losing faith in it. And I've also been having a few blues, like content creation blues myself, you know? It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But this is how I make it better. This is how I'm fixing the situation for myself, you know? I'm being transparent because that's who I am at the end of the day. But I just know the situation and I know where I am. And at the end of the day, all I'm doing is just making the best out of things, you know? Making the best out of things and just trying to make the process of content creation less taxing, because I know I'm not going to get anywhere on this platform. I already accepted my fate. Now it's just time for some fun. Now it's just time for me to talk to you about these things. But like I said, you know, that's why journalism is in the way it is. And it is all connected to the content creation. So it's the same thing as YouTube content creators. Like, same thing as my truth about YouTube. It all applies. That's why I brought this up again. I didn't want to have to bring it up again, but because of this discussion, I brought it up again. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing. So, as I say, the whole point of this is that the whole point of this entire video is that, you know, like, it's mainly just about how the gaming community just is so judgmental and, like, of everybody, and, like, you know, like, it's all tied to the community, because the community are guilty of this, and I see it all the time, you know? People in my circles are even like this, and it's just like, we need to do better, you know? We really need to do better at delivering the right message instead of the wrong message. Stop buying into all this, like, get good bullshit. For the love of God, it's just so dumb and, like, simple-minded. It just makes you look like an idiot. You know? We're better than this, guys. We're better than this. You know? We should be acceptive of people's criticism against all this stuff, you know? Because that way, games can improve. You know, we want games to improve, but it's not just that. That way, people can understand what these games are all about. People can understand, you know, that whether or not these games are for them. So, yeah, it's kind of the point. That's what we want to do.